Triumph has combined almost 15 years of experience in the street triple with decades upon decades of experience building cool retro bikes. Stick those two things together and you've got the 2021 Triumph Trident. I'm surprised they haven't done this already. Stick around, I'm going to tell you all about that bike.
These videos only happen because of the support and help from our sponsors. If you need insurance for your bike, go and check out Bike Devil. Support the companies that support us.
Apologies if you don't like the fact I'm wearing sunglasses. It's sunny. What do you expect? Street Triple was launched a long time ago, back in 2006. The market was a very different place then, and it's important before we set our Trident-shaped stall out for you to understand that the Street Triple in 2006 was like a reflection of what the market was after, which was basically naked super sport bikes. This isn't that kind of bike. Back then, the original Street Triple was 106 horsepower. This is only 80 horsepower. This is Triumph's pitch for the first big bike experience that you're looking for. So naturally, Triumph don't only want your business if you're looking for your first big bike. They're trying to cast the net as far and wide as they can. The market research that they did helps develop this picture of Arthur and Martha, the people who they're trying to target with this bike. Arthur and Martha have done everything. Some of them are in their 50s. They've ridden all of the bikes they possibly want to ride. They're looking for something easy to get at. Not too much power, easy seat height, but still with a bunch of heritage and brand appeal, I think. At the other end of the scale, Arthur and Martha are in their early 20s. Their license is quite fresh. They're ready to step up from a 300 to a 650 or a 660 in this case. So that naked middleweight sector, it's a busy place in the market. This bike's natural competitors are Yamaha MT-07, Honda CB650, Kawasaki Z650 and Suzuki SV650. There are probably a couple of others as well, but they're the ones that jump out at me. After spending a full day on it, I'm going to take out the MT-07 and put in the XSR 700, the retro version of the same bike. You know, fundamentally they're exactly the same thing. It just looks a little bit more Shoreditch than the MT-07. That's kind of who I think would look at this bike as well. You need to know some of the numbers. They're not always interesting, but here they are. If you're in the market for your first big bike, you're going to have to get used to hearing these kinds of things anyway. This bike makes 80 horsepower at 10,250 revs. It makes 47 foot-pounds of torque at 6,250 revs. And if you look at triples, typically you would expect a kind of perfect blend of power and torque. If you look at those other bikes that I've just mentioned, it's comparable. The weight, 189 kilograms wet, is pretty much the average number for all of those bikes in that sector of the market. If you've been a bike fan forever, like I have, it's probably quite easy to forget the terminology that we just absolutely consume day and night when you're into bikes like we are. If you're brand new to bikes, you might not know what a triple is, what a twin is, what an inline four is. So I can quickly show you, look, this is a triple, just three going up and down, see them over there. This is an inline four going up and down, these are pistons by the way, and this is a twin. You can also buy a single. Guess where that's going? Ping! Other important numbers for this bike, 805 millimeters, the seat height. I always try and say in my reviews that I'm not going to bamboozle people and fill them up with numbers, but like I just said, it's important for all of us to understand that new bikers will be starting somewhere, and it usually involves doing a little bit more homework than everyone else. So the new bikers are going to benefit from me giving them these kind of details. Other big bike basics that you need to know. This bike has unadjustable suspension at the front. It's a Showa fork set. That's very good, by the way. It has a simple brake setup, sliding two-piston caliper. I think a 310 millimeter disc at the front. That doesn't really matter. The brakes are plenty good enough. Adjustable span on the lever. Lightweight slipper clutch. Shorter wheelbase than an old school street triple, but a little bit more kind of relaxed a rate with the forks. So don't expect a super sharp steering kind of sports bike experience with this bike. It's really easy to ride. Don't expect to be able to tick a box and change any exhaust option with this bike. It's either as loud as it's going to get, or it's as fast and as optimized as it can possibly be. For the first time in as long as I can remember, there is no factory fit exhaust option on a bike. LED lights front and back add a touch of modernity to the retro flavour of the entire bike, and also the simple looking, until you put some power into it and the ignition comes on. Round clock set is full colour TFT, controlled very easily by the buttons over on the left hand side. Triumph has kept the recipe really simple with this bike. There aren't stacks of riding modes because there isn't stacks of power. There's a rain mode, a riding mode. You can turn the traction control off, and you also have the ability to turn the self-cancelling indicators on and off, all through that clock set with the buttons that I keep imaginarily pushing over here, down here. Something that I thought was quite interesting was, this is the first time I've seen this bike in the flesh with paint. I think maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe even more, we went to the unveil of like the pre-production version of this bike, and it was painted all white. It was really easy to see the flow of design. I'm going to look this way rather than looking at you. If you look at the front of the mudguard where the red bit is that you can see down there, there's a genuine line that flows up through the side of the radcals, the red bit that you can see, and then all the way up to the line at the bottom of the seat and up to the top of the pillions part of the seat. When the bike's all white, you can see that really clearly, and it looks very clever. It's quite a trick design, especially when you incorporate those indents in the tank. There's a lot of design that's going on here, and I guess some of the best designs are ones that you don't really have to think too hard about when you look at them, and I think this is one of those things. It's very easy to look at, and it's also, I think, in a slightly negative way, you kind of miss how much work they've done when you slap paint and stickers on it like they have. Just a few quick details on the motor. 660cc. It's a version of the old Triumph Daytona 675 motor. It's been built and developed with dependability, reliability, huge service intervals, and also cheap service intervals in mind. So it's not chasing revs and chasing power like an old school 675 Daytona motor. Like I said, 80 horsepower and 47 foot-pounds of torque from a relatively unstressed motor with, you know, wet liners, reduced stroke to that 675, easy revving, no spikes in power. Simple. Simple is a nice way to describe that motor. There are 6 gears on this bike. The last 2 are optimised for cruising, motorway speeds. The first 4 are quite short and snappy. They've done that to be able to make the most of the torque that's available, rather than pushing you as a rider up into the revs to go looking for power. What that equates to on the road, and this is the bit that matters, is a lively, engaging revving experience, but there are no hidden danger pockets. There are no spikes in this power or torque. It kind of just revs, I'll do it your way, from 0 to 10,250 RPM at exactly the same speed everywhere. So there's no kind of slow start and then a quick finish. It just revs up. That makes it easy for guys that are looking for their first big bike experience. Also, if you've been around the block a little bit, or you've maybe had a break from biking and you're looking for a step back into bikes, the unintimidating nature of the way that this bike develops power and torque will be good for you. And also, much like that Arthur and Martha that Triumph were telling me about, if you're at the end of your biking life and you're looking for a bike that isn't going to scare you, dun dun dun. So when you couple an unintimidating motor with a relatively easy to get at seat height, 805mm, you're positioning yourself in the realms of maybe Martha a little bit more than Arthur, those bots that Triumph told us about. This bike would be great for women and men who are short and not short. If you're any of those things, you'll probably find something to like in this bike. Oh yeah, I forgot, it's on Michelin Road 5 tyres. They're very, very good. Nobody's paid me to say that. They're a proper tyre. So at 14 stone 1 now, I'm trying to lose a little bit more weight. I'll get there in the end. Just under 6 foot. I was very comfortable on this bike. Those indents, I'm about to show you what they do. They do this. They make it really easy to just tuck your body in, get it out of the wind, and just get comfortable for a decent slog. I felt, even though there's not really much wind protection going on, like I could have sat there all day at 60 or 70 miles an hour that we were doing down the dual carriageway or motorway, I can't remember what it was. I was moving my feet around on the pegs, looking for things to annoy me. There was nothing there. There's plenty of space for you, your feet, your arms, your ass, your hands. It's a pretty cool place to sit. So lots of constant radius, super smooth corners that you would go nuts on if you're on a sports bike, and I know that because I've been here before and ridden exactly that. On this, it was a chance to just experience the perfection that is a well set up chassis. That bike could swallow another 25 horsepower easily. Obviously, when you increase power, you're putting more stress on brakes and suspension, and everything could become slightly out of kilter. So what I experienced was this perfect balance. 80 horsepower, Michelin Road 5s, 2-piston sliding calipers, unadjustable forks, all these quite simple things coupled with this incredible chassis equals a really confidence-inspiring and easy riding experience. Or if you're looking for it, you can carry loads of speed and almost override the bike and push and pull it around and get away with murder on it. Another really pleasant surprise during the cornering experience for me was just how soft the traction control is. Possibly one of the softest and easiest to ride against traction control systems I've ever experienced. Those of us that can remember the first generation BMW S1000RR, when that came out, it had a proper sports traction control system that you could rely on track, you know, get your knee down, pushing against traction control systems. That first gen TC, when it came out, would completely unsettle the bike. It was so intrusive with the way that it cut in and out. The bike was almost rocking on the suspension. Not very good, particularly not very good for new to big bike bikers. You don't need anything intimidating. You don't want to know that the traction control is working. And when it is working, you don't really want to feel it. That's exactly the experience that I had on this bike. It wasn't until I looked down at the dash and saw a really faint TC light flashing that I realised that it was even cutting in. It just felt like the throttle was stuck. So I was twisting it on, asking for more revs, and I could see and hear that I wasn't getting any more revs. Traction control, funny old thing. It's a great system. That big bike experience that Triumph are trying to give people is one that is as unintimidating as possible. So that super rounded chassis that's capable of holding more power and delivering a faster riding experience, it doesn't need to do that. It's not being asked to do that. It's being asked to give people the best first big bike experience they can possibly get. That's why the traction control is as soft as it is. That's why there's no spike of power at the top of the rev range. You know, you can probably tell from this review that I'm not massively excited by this bike. I can tell you how good it is, but Triumph don't want me to buy it. I'm not the target market for this bike. So it is very, very good, but I've had to really force myself to remember what it is that people go looking for in their first big bike. So we know that most of you think that we get money from manufacturers that goes in here and we take bribes and we tell you all the stuff that they want you to know. I haven't been paid to be here. We don't get paid by Triumph to be here. It's as simple as me giving you my opinion. I don't think this bike is for everyone. If you've done a track day, I'd probably say you're too experienced for this bike. That's not to say that you couldn't go and do a track day on it. It's just not for everyone. A test ride will show you exactly what I'm getting at here, but if you're looking at it and you think you can see a little bit of street triple, it's not the same kind of riding experience as a street triple. If you're looking at this bike and you can see a little bit more of the kind of retro underpinnings of the Trident, a name which has been around since the 60s, that's where Triumph want you to be thinking. That's the kind of biker that Triumph can see buying this. So, you know, I'm not being rude to Triumph when I say it isn't for everyone, and a test ride will show you if it's the right bike for you. Now, I know I just said all that guff about, you know, if you've done a track day, it's not for you. If you've done a million track days, go and have a ride on this. You can absolutely ride the wheels off the thing. It's so easy to get away with loads. You could go to track days and embarrass sports bikers if you fancied it. You wouldn't embarrass them on the straights, you'd get absolutely annihilated on the straights. But in the corners, it's just so steady. I couldn't upset the bike. So I think I've pretty much banged the drum enough in terms of trying to tell you who this bike is pitched at. You are going to have to go and test ride it to find out for yourself. The last thing for you to consider when you get to the showroom is making sure it's the right month. There's not going to be any there until mid to late February, I think, possibly early March. And also the price. So those other competitors, SV650, CB650 Honda, which makes 90 horsepower, by the way, MT-07 and Kawasaki Z650, they all have a price that starts with a 6. In the Suzuki's case, it starts with a 5. This one starts with a 7, dun, 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 which might scare you out of the showroom. Don't let it scare you out of the showroom, because there are other things that you need to factor in when you're buying your first big bike, and that is paying for servicing and service intervals. This bike has the cheapest service intervals across the entire sector, so what you're maybe losing in giving a couple of £100 extra when you buy the thing, you're winning back over that 2 or 3 year life cycle where you're paying for the servicing as well as buying the bike. £7,195. I'm not a salesman. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say here. It represents fantastic value. You need to go and ride it and experience it, but go and ride its competition. Go and experience a twin, an inline 4, a single, a triple. Get a little bit of a feeling for the flavour that each of these different kinds of bikes offers you. You'll be topping up your little bag of riding experience, which is also good for you. But I guarantee when you've ridden them all, you're definitely going to come back and have a look at this. It's ticking as many boxes as possible for as many people as possible, for as little as possible. There might be a UJ on the side of the tank, but this bike is not made in Great Britain. Who cares? Where's your TV made? Where's your iPhone made? Where are your Nike trainers made? Who cares?